In this movie, we're going to be talking about how jQuery Mobile transitions from page to page. We'll be using page1 and page2.html in our working files directory for this lesson. Now, by default, when you click on links, it will do a slide transition on browsers that support it. However, you're in complete control over what transition it uses. Let's talk about some of them right now. In order to specify a custom transition for a link, you simply add data transition equals, and then you type in whatever type of data transition you want. Now we actually have a number of them. We have fade, that's the default that you see on desktop browsers. We also have pop, flip, turn, flow, slide, slide up, slide down. Let's go ahead and just try out a couple of them. Let's try pop first. So save that, refresh, and click. And sure enough, there's a little pop transition. Now it looked a little bit funky in our browser because we're using Chrome, but I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the iOS simulator and take a look at how that renders. So I'll hit refresh, click page 2. That looks pretty good. And then there's that back button. So that pop transition looks pretty cool. So what else do we have to try? There's also flip. This is a really fun one. So we'll go over here and refresh. And hit this. And we get that beautiful flip effect. Now that's actually done using CSS transforms, 3D transforms in fact. And so a lot of desktop browsers and sometimes also Android browsers can't quite do it. Looks like Chrome, the latest version of Chrome, can. But if you test it out in some Android browsers, jQuery Mobile will detect whether or not the Android browser can do it, and it'll fall back to a different transition if it can't. Let's also go ahead and try turn. So here it is in Chrome. Looks pretty good. And let's take a look in the iOS simulator. Looks really very nice. Now those may be some of the more kitschy ones. We also have very simple ones like slide. And that's just a simple slide to the left. We also have slide up, slide down, which I'm sure you can guess what they do. And then we also have data transition none. And that looks like this. Just immediate. So with this data transition attribute, you have plenty of control over how the pages change. Now, let's say you want to change the way the pages transition on a global level throughout your entire application, right? By default, it'll either do a fade or a slide. However, if you want to actually explicitly set this inside of a script tag or somewhere after jQuery Mobile has loaded, you can actually go ahead and set the default page transition property on the jQuery Mobile object. In order to do that, you target jQuery.mobile, that's jQuery Mobile's namespace, .default page transition. And you can set that equal to whatever you want. You can set it equal to pop, and now all of the pages throughout your entire app will pop unless you specify otherwise using data transition. And we'll test that out. Sure enough, there's our pop. And that's as simple as this. Don't want to forget that semicolon at the end. Now you can set this anytime you want as long as it's after this jQuery Mobile script tag, because there's no use in setting jQuery.mobile.anything if jQuery.mobile doesn't exist. Now earlier I mentioned that some browsers actually don't have support for some of the transitions. For example, flip. So if you want to specify a fallback for that, you can do something like this, $ or jQuery.mobile.fallback transition.flip equals, and then you can go ahead and specify what you want it to default to. Let's say pop, or maybe slide. Put that semicolon at the end. And now if you encounter a browser that cannot do the flip transition, it'll default to slide. If you don't set this, everything will default to fade or slide. Now, it's beyond the scope of this course, but you can actually create custom transitions if you'd like to. And you can find more about that in the jQuery mobile documentation. But I've found as a developer that pretty much all of the transitions I need jQuery mobile already has implemented. It's always good to have that option though. So that concludes the lesson on page transitions.